I'm Femi OK, and you're in a very stylish stream today. New York Fashion Week is underway, and while many are watching the designers and the models on the runway for this year's biggest trends, chances are that you're looking to social media to actually find fashion and models that represent your body type and your way of dressing and your thoughts on fashion.
And with about 800 million users, Instagram has become a fashion hub for many, including those who dress modestly, plus-size models, or designers who sell gender non-conforming clothes. So we asked our community some of their favorites, and here's what they told us. Gio Robrigado says, mine are two Germans, Joe Lasich for formal, executive, smart casual, and Daniel Tony for casual, everyday streetwear. Well, Shazlin Rahman on Instagram also wrote to us with her favorite, Huda Katibi, whose style is as sharp as her wit. You can see some of her Instagram photos right there. And I'll throw in a shout out to just one of my favorites, Hakima, whose pitch was also an inspiration for today's show. Now, modest clothing has had a very successful few years, especially marketing to the Muslim demographic. For example, Nike developed a hijab for professional sports people, and the U.S. department store Macy's announced it would begin carrying modest clothing and hijabs in its stores. But modest fashion designers of many faiths have already been highly successful online, speaking directly to their consumers for years. So with us now to discuss are Chaya Khanin and Simi Polanski, sisters and founders of The Frock NYC, that's a modest clothing line. We're also joined by Fahima Saidi. She's an entrepreneur and a fashion director at Flume, a modest fashion label she created with her sisters. Welcome to the stream, all of you. Really excited to have this conversation, especially this topic, of course. I want to start with a video comment we got because our community is just as excited to have this conversation. This is Zahra Al Jabri, and she is a fashion entrepreneur in the modest fashion industry. Here's what she had to say.
The most surprising thing I learned while creating Modesty was that big brands were not making much effort, if any, to reach out to real women and hear from them and see what they wanted. I was really shocked to understand in the industry how little consideration is given for a real woman coming in to test and fit their clothing.
Chaya, Simi, can you relate at all? Were you shocked before you started your line that you couldn't find things that specifically spoke to you in the way that you wear your clothing?
It's interesting. I was just thinking that. We used to spend our childhood buying clothing and then going to buy trimmings and lace and all these different other snippets of fabric so we could like scouring markets for like odds and ends and random dresses that were not in the stores to fix the clothing in order that they were able to be worn by us in a modest way because there really wasn't anything available. It was all about the jeans, tank top, pair of short shorts, and that was it. And so it was very difficult, and that's how we started just training our eye in the fashion sphere of how we would alter what was there in order to meet our needs.
Fahima, as a designer, when you're looking at designing something that's modest, what are you looking at? What are you looking at that perhaps another designer might not be focused on?
I'm looking at what's not out there in the fashion world already. Something that a lot of the modest clothing, the girls that would want to wear it, a lot of the females that we've spoke to, they really are inspired by like high fashion, mainstream fashion, and they like what they see on Instagram, but it's so hard for them to find it. So we try to recreate it in ways where it's modest and they're able to wear it.
Tell me about those ways in which it's modest. That was what I was getting at. What are you looking and focused on?
We're focused on making sure that it's fully covered, making sure it's long sleeves, making sure it doesn't have any cutouts, splits. It can be loose or baggy, just giving them the options because there are like different levels of modest as well. And we like to have, you know, different levels for any kind of Muslim or even non-Muslims.
So we actually got a tweet here from Mona who writes in that, to me, modest fashion is an outer expression of our devoutness to God. We still do, however, like to dress fashionably and trendy. So that's why having the Verona collection readily available at Macy's, that's what we talked about at the beginning of the show, is so incredible. It's like finally having a voice. And I want to actually share a picture here. Fahima, this is of one of your designs on the runway. Tell us a little bit about the thinking behind this.
So right now, when we created that piece, we had in mind like the latest trends. It's definitely florals. Purple is the color of the year. We tried to incorporate some flares. Also, it's like suited, which suits are in right now. Just looking at what's trending and what most of the consumers are into, we like to take that and make it like modest appropriate.
Just want to show you this. This is the frock NYC. This is your Instagram, ladies. Going down here. I used to live in Brooklyn. I lived in a very Orthodox Jewish area, and this was not the fashion that I was seeing.
No, definitely not. That's not what you were saying.
How's your community reacting to this? Because this stuff is amazing.
Thank you. In the beginning, I do have to say that when we first moved to Brooklyn, we were definitely seen as different, and we did stand out. And what we've noticed and what we're trying to say is that we are not the definer of, in Judaism, of what is modest for everyone and what is immodest for certain levels. We are trying to share a perception and say modesty is about an attitude. It's about telling the world that a woman can be valued beyond her body. So when we design clothing, we're not looking at what skin to show. We're looking at how you can have fun with fabrics and drape and play and layering to express the woman with her desires through design.
What was interesting that I found that over time, people seeing us more and becoming more relatable is that our followers, our customers, our fans were like, hey, we can also be modest. It's relatable. It's easy. It's actually doable. And you're showing us a way that we can all, we can wear what you're wearing and also feel fashionable and not feel like I'm only being modest.
Right. So aside from sharing our aesthetic, we're also sharing an attitude. And when we welcome women from all different faiths that have all different standards of dressing. And for example, they would say to us, I dress like this, A, B, and C, and I want this to be covered, and say, there is no problem with making that fashionable as well, because it's not about what you want to show, it's about who you want to be. And that's our whole attitude about our whole brand. It's about designing clothing that changes the perception of what a modest woman is.
So I want to give you this critique right here. I'm not sure I completely understand it, but maybe you will. This is Barjis on Twitter, who says, there's a fetish obsession with the word modest. Nobody is interested in what it represents. They're just using it as a ticket to stardom. As a creative designer, I'm pretty troubled by where it's going. She goes on to say, representation and inclusivity is important, but how it's represented is equally important. And right now, it's noisy, modest YouTubers grabbing the limelight. So Chaya and Simi, can you relate to that at all? I heard a yes when I was reading some of that.
Chaya and I were actually discussing recently. We were talking, we said, we were getting quite, I would say, not bored, but it was like, okay, modest. For lack of a better word, modest this and modest that, and the world, there's a new modest stream. And what we were trying to, and what we constantly try to share is that it's not necessarily about a specific area of skin that you're covering and not covering. We're really trying to show people, just by being our honest selves, that it's about how you value yourselves as a woman, and that is what we're trying to share. So
ladies, is there a better word than modest? Is there? No, we don't want to use modest. We should be talking about this. Have you come up with a better word, a description?
I would say it's almost like having a sensitivity to yourself and to your surroundings.
A soul sensitivity?
I would say,
I like the sensitivity.
I like a little bit of the word sensitivity, because modest often, especially today, it's like modest this and modest that. Modest is the new everything, and it's kind of losing its beauty and power, authenticity. So it's almost about a woman's empowerment, and because everyone's modest will be different. Everyone's modest. What someone might consider modest in a tank top and shorts, someone might say is not modest. So it's really about a sensitivity to your surroundings, where you are, what you're doing, and how you carry yourself, and
empowering yourself to feel confident.
And empowering a woman to feel like she doesn't have to sexualize herself in order to be valued.
All right, I want to ask you about media coverage and the impact that you're having, but I'm going to ask you to sit tight, because we're doing a couple of different fashion genres in the program today. So Fahima and Chaya and Simi, Keep watching the show. We're talking about more fashion, but we'll be back with you in a couple of minutes. Now, the runways of Milan, Paris and New York are coming off the back of a really successful year of inclusivity, and great strides are being made. In fact, one publication even found that 2017 was the most diverse year in fashion. But the major fashion houses have been slow to reflect the popularity of plus-size fashion on social media. Here's Francisca Nyamu. She's the CEO and founder of Plus Size Fabulosity in Kenya.
You can access fashionable pieces online or, in the shops. And all this is because of the work that we have put in to show designers and stockists that there is a big market that needs not to be ignored anymore. And we look forward to having more collections that are size inclusive, that embrace the plus size community, to make them look fashionable, to make them look and feel confident about themselves. And at the end of the day, it's about being body positive, being inclusive in the fashion industry. And we hope to see this change going forward, and that will not retreat, but forever make a positive difference in the society.
So we're talking plus-size models. With us on the phone, Trey Campbell is a songwriter and plus-size model for ASOS. He recently walked in Men's Fashion Week in New York. And Charlie Stewart-Rusin is a fashion blogger writing about plus-size fashion. Really good to have you both on the show. OK, let me just recreate a moment that we had in our editorial meeting yesterday. I said out loud that I didn't think that plus-size was a pejorative word. And then Malika said...
If you look at Femi, she is probably not categorized by many people as plus size. It's something similar to what I said, but that terminology is something that we got online. We just got this via YouTube. Misty Knight says, why do people say so-called when it comes to plus size clothing? To me, that's an admittance that people are aware that plus size clothing doesn't encompass true plus sized people. Charlie, terminology is so difficult here. What do you call this genre?
Yeah, so I use the term plus size. I am very, very happy to call myself plus size. Some people find it offensive, the plus. In terms of what size it covers, I think it's really how you identify. I'm on the edge of kind of plus size in that I can shop in straight mainstream shops and shops that are catered for the larger woman. But even when it comes to kind of plus size fashion, it excludes a lot of plus size women. So if you're over, say, a UK size 28, which is going to be US size 24, I think, you're probably not going to be able to shop in a lot of the plus size stores out there. So things are getting better in terms of being able to shop in stores, but yeah, plus size, it's such a massive spectrum.
Trey, I'm really curious, Charlie, I'm just going to bring in Trey here because he also is a plus-sized model. Trey, I'm really curious about how would you describe the way the main fashion industry treats people who are not a size that's petite or built with abs? How would you describe that situation?
Well, unfortunately, I feel like the fashion industry hasn't taken note of what the majority of fashion consumers are. A lot of fashion consumers come in all different shapes and sizes. So for me, I think it's a good business move just to be paying attention to who the actual consumers of fashion are.
Describe your size. Is that the right way to describe it? You describe you, and we're looking at pictures of you.
Yes. So I'm 5'11".
Yes.
I am 275 pounds, so I'm definitely a bigger guy. And you all were talking about the term plus. I personally love the term plus because to me, plus is a positively connotated word. Plus means more. And I definitely have more personality. I have more to love, and I think that's definitely a positive thing. So I own the term.
I love the owning of it. I want to bring in one other voice. This is someone on Twitter, Jackie Mary says, it is the responsibility of designers to make people who are larger or don't have off-the-rack figures feel qualified to be consumers. And the same goes for diversifying the beauty standard with different kinds of model looks. So Trey, I know that there was one company in particular that made you feel valued as a customer. Tell us about that.
Definitely. So as a bigger guy, it's difficult to go into a lot of the bigger retail companies and find apparel that first and foremost makes you feel comfortable, and then secondly, that fits well. So a dear friend of mine told me about the company ASOS, who is pretty much ahead of the trend when it comes to being all-inclusive with sizing. I ordered a couple of things online, I think the top of last year. They came to me in 2 days. They have 2-day shipping, and the fit was incredible. I found it astounding that an online retail brand was able to get my fit so well without me actually going into store and trying on something. So I'm ASOS for life.
Let me just bring in back in Haya and Simi and Fahima. I'm just wondering if all of you listening to each other, are you a movement, Fahima? Do you feel that what you're doing is a movement, or you're part of a movement to open up the fashion industry?
We definitely are. This is the movement that the fashion industry has been lacking, and it's really great to see that it's finally, they're finally picking up. A lot of designers are trying to be more body inclusive. They're trying to be more, we have big designers trying to create hijab. We have Christian Serrano, which is one of my favorite designers, who on his runway, he always has plus size models. So I think it's a great movement that's happening right now in the world, and hopefully it keeps going and it keeps getting better and easier.
Charlie, I want to bring up something that we got some interesting feedback from our online community. We asked, do designers have a responsibility to be more inclusive? Haley Lynn writes in, the word responsibility makes inclusivity sound like a burden. I think with the current state of the world and every other industry, inclusivity is a natural progression in order to not only ensure self-acceptance, but also for designers to survive as businesses. Would you agree with that, Charlie?
Yeah, I think it's not really about responsibility. It's about genuinely being nice people and being inclusive. I think what I'm getting from this with the modest fashion as well, we want diversity and we want choice, and we want designers and fashion houses to give us that. They're kind of getting better at it, but ultimately they're not inclusive. And they need to start listening to people's demands and people's needs and realizing that we need choice.
Trey, I'm just wondering, if we took social media out of this mix, the fact that we can see you and see Charlie and see Haya and Simi and Fahima, your vision of the kind of fashion that you want to wear, if we took social media out of the mix, where do you think you'd be?
Honestly, I think we would still be in the same place.
Yeah.
As 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I think because body positivity and visibility is such a big thing in social media, it's brought the cause to the forefront. It's brought the cause to mainstream attention. So honestly, I'm really thankful for social media for connecting so many people and bringing awareness to this movement.
Likewise. Yeah. I'd just like to add that I think this whole responsibility of being inclusive is that thankfully to social media, it's not just a movement, it's more of a community. So when when we feel part of a community and when others feel part of a community of plus size models and different interfaiths that make people feel comfortable to cover up more or to show amazing pictures of themselves, even if they're wearing a size 28, being part of a community allows someone to say, oh, hey, I love doing this. And it gives them more of a sense of power and freedom to continue doing it, actually.
It also is educating the designers of what, who their consumer is, and we are the consumers. So if we do, share our voice and share our needs, then it is their responsibility. And if they're not owning up to that responsibility, then they might not, they might not survive, or they might not have that same connection to their customers and their community. And that's what we hope to do, because we listen and we feel like we are connected. We are peers with our customers and with our...
Because it's more of a community. That's why.
So I want to throw one other thing at you. This is a headline that we saw not too long ago. New York Fashion Week calendar adds category for unisex and non-binary fashion. And we actually got a video comment from someone who's talking about opening up that realm on the runways. This is April, and this is what they told us.
Genderless fashion isn't new. Until the 20th century, kids under the age of 5 or dress identically regardless of gender. The rise of genderless fashion comes from a desire for a more inclusive society. This is not a fashion trend, but a grassroots movement of individuality and authenticity.
So Simi, I'm scrolling through their Instagram right now, rigit.co, clothes that transcend gender, just going down that right now. How important do you think mainstreaming yourselves is? Is that acceptance something that you are looking for?
For me, I think the whole idea of mainstreaming what we want to share is very important because it's sharing an attitude, and it's sharing a vision of inclusivity, of saying that we design for ourselves. Us as women, we can be who we want to be regardless of how much skin we are showing or not. So the whole idea of inclusivity and mainstreaming what we're doing is very important because it's more of a voice. It's just as much a voice as it is a fashion label that just appeals to the aesthetic senses.
I just showed a picture of you two on Vogue, no less. Congratulations. And there are lots of stories, Fahima, about hijab. Charlie, you finding the press are now chasing you too. I'm just wondering how the media is reacting, because that helps get the word out. Charlie?
So, me, not so much. I think...
Is there still a barrier to people actually saying it's okay to be different sizes, we're okay about showing that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely getting better. There are some really great bloggers out there who are featured very heavily. Danny Vanya, who's a big blogger over in the UK, has just partnered with an amazing fashion brand here, and all of the newspapers have picked up on it. The issue with that is it comes with a lot of trolling. It's kind of scary for a plus-size woman to go on something big and go in a newspaper, because you know that you're going to get criticised for it afterwards. The hate around it is terrible. So you kind of have to grow a tough skin.
What would you say to people to make them understand what it is that you're trying to do, so they might just maybe take a pause before they start trolling you?
I think it's just I'm human. You know, just because I'm fat doesn't mean I'm not human. I still like fashion. I still have friends and family. I still like to have interests and hobbies, and I am human. Just because I'm fat doesn't mean I'm not.
Charlie, here's someone who would completely agree with you, though I think most people that are watching our show would completely agree with you. This is the curvy fashionista who says, in a perfect world, I wouldn't be relegated to shopping online only. I could walk into every store knowing they'd carry my size and style aesthetic. Masses would have race and size diversity. There wouldn't be ignorant comments made, and we'd be fully welcomed and celebrated. Trey, in the last few seconds of our show here, what would be your perfect world?
In a perfect world, we would just be more open to diversity. I think we're in a day and age where so much is in the mainstream in social media, and I think we just need to be aware and to celebrate our differences instead of tearing each other down because of those differences. I personally believe that those differences and the diversity of the world are what make it such a beautiful place to live in.
Trey and Charlie and Haya and Simi and Fahima, thank you for making this show so incredibly stylish. Trey, before you go, you were on New York Fashion Week. You walked that catwalk. In 3 words, what was that experience like?
It was exciting, nerve-wracking, and I don't know, I think a game changer. I'm hoping that this is going to inspire other designers and other retailers to follow in ASOS's footsteps in being more body positive and size inclusive.
Very nice. Okay, Trey and Charlie and Haya and Simi and Fahima, thank you for making this stream extremely stylish. We appreciate that. We'll be following you online, and you can follow Malika and I always at #AJStream. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.